Put your money in the backseat. Don't give a hell paparazzi, baby. You know they always trying to get me. $1 million looking icy.
All right, so today we are diving into some seriously headline-grabbing news. Diddy's arrest.
Yeah.
And I know what you're thinking, another day, another celebrity scandal, right?
Right.
But this one's got layers, my friend. We're talking accusations, sealed indictments, and a whole lot of questions swirling around. So while you might have caught the breaking news, we're going beyond the PMZ headlines to uncover what this all really means.
That's right. Because with a case like this, it's easy to get caught up in the sensationalism of it all. But what we're going to do is equip you with the knowledge to understand the legal processes at play, the potential implications, and how this whole thing connects to a much bigger conversation about how we consume information.
Okay, let's unpack this. So the TMZ articles, they basically paint a picture of Diddy going from casual dad mode greeting fans in New York City with his son to suddenly being apprehended by Homeland Security. It's a wild ride just reading the timeline.
And that's where things get interesting, right?
Yeah.
Because the timing, as TMZ points out, is strange. The arrest was supposedly scheduled for Tuesday, but then something shifted and the feds moved in a day early. What changed? What new information came to light? Those are some of the questions we'll be exploring.
Right. And then there's this whole sealed indictment thing, which honestly always sounds super secretive to me, like something straight out of a legal drama. Can you break down what that actually means in Diddy's case?
Sure. In simple terms, a sealed indictment means a grand jury, which operates in secret, has decided there's enough evidence to formally accuse Diddy of a crime. Now, the details of those charges are still under wraps, and this is where it's crucial to remember an indictment isn't a guilty verdict. It's just the very beginning of what could be a long legal battle.
So even though those TMZ headlines might make it seem like it's all over, it's really just the starting line for this whole thing. But here's what I found particularly fascinating. Diddy was seen just hours before his arrest, completely calm, greeting fans. It's almost too picture perfect, you know?
Exactly, and that's a prime example of why we can't always take things at face value, especially when it comes to celebrities. They often have entire teams dedicated to managing their public image. So while a legal storm might be brewing behind the scenes, what we see on the surface can be a very calculated narrative.
It's almost like two different worlds colliding, the curated public persona and then the harsh realities of a legal battle.
Precisely. And that's why it's crucial to be aware of those different layers at play. We need to remember that what we see in the media, especially when it comes to high-profile cases, is often a carefully constructed story, influenced by legal strategies, public relations, and even the entertainment value of it all.
Okay, so we've got this arrest the sealed indictment and a whole lot of speculation flying around. Where do we even begin to make sense of all this?
Well, that's where critical thinking comes in. And it's not just about this Diddy situation. It's about how we approach information in general.
So you're saying this whole thing is like a crash course in media literacy?
Exactly. Because just like we shouldn't jump to conclusions based on a single news article or a social media post, we need to approach this case with a healthy dose of skepticism and a desire to understand the nuances.
So how do we actually put that critical thinking into practice? What are some red flags we should be looking out for, especially with a case like Diddy's that's already generating so much buzz?
Well, a big one is recognizing the difference between facts, allegations, and speculation. Just because something is reported in the media doesn't automatically make it true. And when it comes to legal matters, it's especially important to remember that everyone is presumed innocent until proven guilty in a court of law.
Right, so those TMZ articles that mention witness testimonies and search warrants, those are still just pieces of a much larger puzzle, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Those details are certainly important to consider, but they don't tell the whole story.
Yeah.
A good critical thinker would ask, what's the context for these testimonies? What were the investigators looking for with those search warrants? And how does all of this fit into the overall narrative of the case?
It's like trying to solve a mystery. But instead of just focusing on the clues that seem obvious, we need to be looking for the missing pieces, the inconsistencies, the things that don't quite add up.
Exactly. And that's where things get really interesting, because often it's those inconsistencies or gaps in the information that can lead to a deeper understanding of what's really going on.
Okay, so let's say we're scrolling through our news feeds and we see another Diddy update pop up. What are some questions we should be asking ourselves to avoid falling into those media traps?
Well, first and foremost, who's the source? Is it a reputable news organization with a track record of accuracy, or is it a gossip site known for sensationalism? Second, consider the language being used. Is it balanced and objective, or is it emotionally charged and designed to elicit a specific reaction?
It's amazing how often we just passively consume information without stopping to question where it's coming from or what the intention behind it might be.
It's true, and it's a testament to how powerful those media narratives can be. But by being aware of those influences, we can start to break free from that passive consumption and become more active participants in shaping our own understanding of the world around us.
Which brings us back to Diddy. I mean, this whole situation, as we've been discussing, is about so much more than just one celebrity's legal troubles. It's a prime example of how important it is to engage critically with the information we're bombarded with every single day.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
Because whether we're talking about a high-profile arrest, a political debate, or even just a personal disagreement, that ability to think critically, to question assumptions, and to seek out multiple perspectives is absolutely essential.
It's like that saying, don't believe everything you read. But in today's world, it's not just about what we read. It's about what we see, what we hear, and how we process all of that information.
Exactly. And it's a skill that takes practice, but the more we engage with it, the better equipped we'll be to navigate this increasingly complex world.
So with Diddy's case still unfolding, how can we apply this critical lens moving forward? What are some things we should be paying attention to as new information comes to light?
One crucial aspect will be following how both the prosecution and the defense present their cases. Keep an eye out for any inconsistencies or contradictions in their arguments. Also pay attention to the language used by legal experts and analysts. Are they presenting information objectively, or are they pushing a particular agenda?
It's like becoming an armchair detective in a way, looking for those subtle clues and hidden meanings. And I guess that's part of what makes this whole thing so fascinating, right?
Absolutely, because it's a real-time example of how quickly narratives can shift and how important it is to stay informed, engaged, and above all, critical.
It really is fascinating. And, a little bit daunting to think about how much of this critical thinking we have to apply to our everyday lives now.
It's true. But remember, this isn't about becoming cynical or distrusting everything we see and hear. It's about being discerning. It's about being aware of the forces that might be shaping the information we consume and then using our own judgment to determine what rings true.
So it's about empowering ourselves to be active participants in this whole information landscape rather than just passive consumers getting swept along by the tide.
Exactly. And that's a powerful place to be. Because when we approach information with a critical eye, we're not just taking things at face value, we're digging deeper, we're asking questions, and we're forming our own conclusions based on careful consideration and a more comprehensive understanding of the issues at hand.
It's interesting you use the word issues because even though this whole deep dive started with Diddy's arrest, we've really been talking about something much bigger. How important it is to be critical consumers of all kinds of information, whether it's about a celebrity legal battle, a breaking news story, or even just something we see on social media.
Absolutely. Because those critical thinking skills, they're transferable. They equip us to navigate the complexities of our world, to engage in meaningful conversations, and to make informed decisions based on careful consideration rather than just knee-jerk reactions.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to go back to something you said earlier about the importance of seeking out multiple perspectives. Why is that so crucial, especially in a world where it's so easy to get stuck in our own echo chambers?
That's a great question. And the answer is simple. When we expose ourselves to different viewpoints, even those we might not initially agree with, it challenges our assumptions, broadens our understanding, and helps us develop a more nuanced perspective on the world. It's about embracing complexity rather than shying away from it.
And isn't that really what this whole deep dive has been about? Embracing the complexity of this Diddy situation, understanding the legal nuances, acknowledging the role of media narratives, and ultimately using this one case as a springboard for a much larger conversation about how we consume information and form opinions.
Precisely. Because when we start asking those tough questions, challenging assumptions, and seeking out diverse perspectives, we open ourselves up to a whole new level of understanding. And that's a journey worth taking, regardless of the topic at hand.
Couldn't agree more. So as this Diddy case continues to unfold, let's all commit to being a little more critical, a little more curious, and a lot more discerning about the information we choose to consume and share.
Well said. Because in a world awash with information, the ability to think critically is not just valuable, it's essential.
And on that note, we'll leave you with this. The next time you see a headline, scroll past a social media post, or even find yourself forming a quick judgment, take a moment. Pause. Ask yourself, what's the full story here, and how can I approach this with a critical and open mind?
Until next time, stay curious, my friends.
And as always, thanks for diving deep with us.
Put your money on the backseat. Don't give a hell about paparazzi, baby. You know they always tryna get me. $1 million looking icy.